Well, hello. Thank you for joining us for another one of our wonderful online classes. Today, right now, I am going to be sharing with you a yin yoga sequence for lowering anxiety. I don't know about you, but in the wake of all of the uncertainty of what's going on, my anxiety levels have been fluctuating. So thankful for my yoga practice to help keep me checking in and breathing and moving my body, noticing where I'm holding tension. I don't know how people do it without yoga, to be honest. But anyways, so that's what this practice is about. In order to make it so that I can once again upload this video, which I successfully did this morning. Oh, I feel like I killed it, just not the actual video. It may be awkward, I don't really even know. I don't really watch them after I put them up. I don't really look all the way through. It feels weird to watch yourself. I'm rambling. Anyways, I feel like I killed it at working with my computer this morning. I'm very comfortable working with importing and exporting digital files and editing them and all of that, but for some reason I hit a massive roadblock with importing and exporting video files. So the learning curve is real and it has been getting easier. So to make my own personal life easier, I'm gonna once again keep this video a little bit short. So a couple of things to offer you in preparation for this video. One thing is that I don't know if you use Spotify or if that's something you're interested in doing, but if you do, we have a bunch of curated playlists on Spotify that we use in the studio often. So if you feel like you're missing your practice and you want to feel a little bit more immersed in your routine, then you can go to our playlists and find a playlist. They are all named and labeled. So I think we have one called Swadhisthana Yin, which is like a hip opening Yin practice, which this is not today. We also have, I think, Yin Yoga and maybe Yin Yoga too. I can't remember, but we have a couple of Yin Yoga playlists on there. And so you're welcome to take a moment. If you're watching this on Facebook, there is a link in our bio to our Spotify account. I think I still have it under my name, Shannon Turner, so it's there, but you're welcome to get music going. Another thing you might think of doing is having a timer ready. So because I don't really want to use a bunch of storage on storage, but I don't want to make the file size huge here. Instead of me being in the poses and holding them with you for minutes on end, I'll let you choose the appropriate amount of time for you to hold your poses. So once I get into the pose, you can pause, you can set your timer, you can hold until the timer goes off. One of my favorite timers for letting me know that it's ready, time to move on in my personal practice is the insight timer. It's awesome. It has little gong and chime sounds. It's free. You can also pay for additional sounds if you didn't like the free sound. The free sounds are awesome though. But anyways, set the timer for as long as you want. So for each pose, I'll maybe give a suggestion of time, and then it's up to you. You can decide how long you want to stay in it. When we come out of the pose, I would suggest coming to a really neutral position. So if we're on the floor, maybe we just come to lie on our belly. If we are on our back, we maybe just come to lie on our, stay lying on our back, but in a more neutral position. If we're standing, maybe just come to stand in mountain pose. If we're seated, we just come to sit with maybe the legs stretched out in front of us and the hands in behind us. All right, let's do this. Again, this whole practice is only going to be done using a pillow if you're at home. So we have our little square bolster, one blanket, and I have a chair here because I want to make sure that this is not filled up with a bunch of props that might not be accessible to you right now. So, are you ready to do this? I think I'm going to take off my denim shirt here because I just realized that I'm still wearing it and it's not overly stretchy or conducive to moving a lot. So, the very first pose that we're going to come into is sometimes called ragdoll pose or dangling pose. So when we come into this pose, it could be intense. One way to lessen that intensity would be to have something supporting our torso or upper body, so we could come down to like a chair or something. This is not the same as forward fold. The intention here is not to stretch our hamstrings, so we bring a good size bend into the knees. It'll make the quadriceps work a little bit in this pose, but that's okay. The focus of this pose is to release our upper or our back. So there's a stretch in the low back, and in the upper back, if you can find relaxation in your body. It took me a while to be able to relax my body enough to feel this, but you can almost get like a decompression of your upper spine, like your neck and your upper back. The weight of your head, if you can soften your neck muscles, the weight of your head pulling down, you can feel like a sense of like stretch, of like elongation, which feels fantabulous. So here we go. Coming into this pose, I would suggest holding this pose between 1 and 3 minutes, whatever you're comfortable with. If I'm using a chair, I might come down and let my hands rest on the chair and my chin tuck into my chest and try to relax. I could also come down to rest forearms onto the chair, head can kind of shake and move around until we feel like we're not squeezing our muscles here. We could also do this without the chair. And then in this version, still gonna bend my knees nice and deep, arms can kind of dangle. So I could dangle, just letting my arms straight towards the floor, chin tucks in, crown of the head points towards the ground. You're gonna hold onto opposite elbows. So once you've found your way in, you can pause, hold for as long as you'd like, and then hit play again, and join me in coming into the next pose. So, moving into the next pose, we're gonna come into heart melting pose here. So our yin practice is not really strict on alignment. We're trying to find a little bit of relaxation in our body though. We're trying not to work super hard in these poses. So when I come into heart melting pose, again I can use a chair. So one way I could come into heart melting pose might be to be on my knees and have my arms come to a chair. And then kind of relax down. And you can play around with the position of everything until it feels good. I could have my forehead rest on this chair. I can let my pelvis tilt forward so my tailbone is reaching up towards the ceiling. So this might be one option right here. Another option could be, get this out of the way, that we come down to the mat and I can support under my chest with a pillow or a blanket rolled up. if I want, so that I can kind of relax down. Again, I really like the feeling in my body. You could also, sorry, I didn't grab another one right now, but you could also stack multiple pillows if you don't want to come quite as far down, if you want it to be a little bit higher like this. I lost my train of thought, where I was going before. I really find that I like the feeling of finding that tilt in my pelvis where I'm really reaching my tailbone up towards the ceiling. Another option would be to not prop here at all. Come down to the floor. Chest might touch the ground, it might not. I could have forehead resting on the floor. I could have chin resting on the floor, as long as this feels comfortable for my neck. Another thing I can do, if I wanted this to be a little bit more intense, is get my knees a little bit higher, away from the floor. So as I come down, I'm gonna be in a bigger back bend. So, feel free to play around for a little bit. In this pose, you might set a timer again between like 1 and 3 minutes. I don't feel like it's, you go longer than that if you want. It can be a lot on the shoulders. There's a lot of shoulder extension there, so that you might feel like it's a working pose. It's not necessarily the most comfortable pose. Not all of our yin poses are necessarily comfortable. And I'll meet you in the next pose. Okay, so the next pose that we're going to come into is going to be Sphinx pose. So, when I'm trying to lower my anxiety in yoga, there's a couple of things that I can do. One of the things that I can do is practice lots of forward folding, which we'll practice some more forward folding soon. Another thing is to have my heart facing the ground, which feels more safe. It feels less vulnerable than having our heart open. Because of everything that's going on right now, I don't want to do all forward folds, because energetically in my yoga practice, while I'm trying to alleviate my feelings of anxiety, I also don't want to feel depressed, because there is a lot of fear and a sense of having no control over what's going on, because we don't have any control over what's going on right now. So I still want to keep my heart open. So I'm doing these prone or belly down heart opening postures to try to keep my heart open while we go through all of this craziness. So, Sphinx pose. Hands kind of come out in front of me. And then everything that you do here is going to be based upon your own comfort. So we could keep the head in a kind of neutral position. You could let the head kind of fall down with the chin tucked in towards the chest. Again, we're going to hold this pose for between 1 and 3 minutes. So you're welcome to pause the video and start your timer and hold here for the length of time that you want. And I'll meet you after and we'll move into our next pose. So the next pose we're going to come into is going to be half frog pose. So I'm going to take my arms and stack them one on top of the other. Let my forehead rest on the back of my arms. I'm going to take one leg out to the side. So I know that a common thing that happens when I'm teaching is some people find this really uncomfortable for the bones, on the inside of the ankle and the inside of the knee. So you can have like a blanket or something extra cushiony out to the side so that you have that extra little support under there if you do find that uncomfortable. And then other than that, you can kind of play with the position of your legs, what your opposite leg is doing. Sometimes I like to take my opposite leg out farther. Sometimes I like to turn the toes of my opposite leg out. You can kind of play around with this pose. The knee can be up like real high. The knee can be really low. You can find the right spot for yourself today. And then we're gonna hold this pose for 3 to 5 minutes. So you can pause here, set yourself a timer, and then we can meet here again before we switch sides. So, when we switch sides, I'm turning around so that I can still face the camera with my leg and my head here. You don't have to turn yourself. You can just bring your leg out the other side. When we come into the other side, one thing I try to always remind everyone when I'm practicing with them is pretend like it's a brand new pose. Just because one thing felt good on one side of your body doesn't mean it's going to feel good on this side of our body. Both sides of our body do not have the same range of motion, the same tightness. So make sure that you allow yourself to slowly come into this just like you did on the first side. So same thing here. Foot can come out. You can find how far up or how low down you want to bring your knee. Arms can be stacked, one on top of the other. Forehead rests on the back of the arms. And opposite leg, you can find a comfortable spot for that. We'll hold here for maybe 3 to 5 minutes. You can pause here, and then I will meet up with you to come into the next pose. So, for our next pose, I come into a forward fold. So, slightly different than when we come into a forward fold in our active practice. When I come into a forward fold in my yin practice, I'm going to let my legs really soften. In my active practice, I keep them really engaged and I push to my heels and pull my toes back and pull my kneecaps up to squeeze my upper thighs. Here I'm going to let them soften, so my feet might fall forward. When I start to focus on relaxing the muscles in my hips, my feet might even fall apart. And then when we fold forward here, in our active practice, we try not to have a crazy amount of rounding of our spine. But in this yin style, it's not an alignment-based style, so you can come in whatever feels comfortable. So as you come forward, sometimes it feels nice to keep our hands on our legs. You are welcome to round your back if you want here. You don't have to if you don't want to. It could feel nice to have our hands resting more on the floor. Sometimes I like to reach down and hold onto my heels, either inside of my legs or outside of my legs. We could also have pillow. So we might come down and rest with a pillow underneath our elbows or forearms to support us. We might be sitting right here. Sometimes just sitting straight up can be a lot, especially if really tight in the backs of your legs. So we might be right here for our yin forward fold today. So again, find the variation that's comfortable for you. There are a bajillion more ways that you could modify this pose, so feel free to play and explore. It's not just that the ways that I showed you here are the only ways you can go into it. It's your body and your practice, so feel free to move around. And we'll hold this pose for between 3 and 5 minutes. And then when we come out of it, actually you could hold it even longer if you wanted to. We might come back and just rest on our hands for a couple of seconds before we move on. So you can pause if you want, and then I'll meet up with you to come into the next pose. So the next pose that we're going to come into is Shavasana. So Shavasana can be done lying on our back. It's kind of the traditional way that we do it, with arms out, slightly away from the body, palms facing up, legs extended, maybe a little bend in the knees. But when we're trying to focus on lowering anxiety, sometimes it can be really nice to do a belly down Shavasana. So when I come into a belly down Shavasana, a couple of things I could do. I might actually, if I'm doing a belly down Shavasana in my own practice, I would probably do a couple of blankets. I might do 2 blankets because my cheeks are so wimpy and I hate the feeling of my cheek pressing on the floor. I might feel really comfortable. I do feel really comfortable when I support under my hips. This gives us, again, too, just that tiny little bit of a back bend. So when I come down, I just let the points of my hips rest. I might take my arms to a comfortable spot. Let a cheek rest on the floor. This is where I would usually have just a thinly folded blanket in a big rectangle kind of underneath my head, so that as I rest down, my cheekbone has a little bit of extra cushion so that it stays nice and comfortable. Otherwise, all my awareness for the whole time I'm here is on my cheekbone. You could also have forehead resting on the ground. We could stack hands, let our forehead rest on our hands. You can kind of play around with it. You can shift and bring the other side of your head to rest down too. We could spend between 5 and 15 minutes in our Shavasana today. Whether that's belly down or whether you choose a more traditional Shavasana lying on your back. You can set your timer if you want, so that you are confident that you're not going to fall asleep and stay there for longer than you want to. Just take a moment as you come into Shavasana to make sure that you're feeling really comfortable, that all of your body is feeling supported. You can cover up with a blanket if you want to. When we're focusing on lessening anxiety, if you did choose to lie on your back for Shavasana, then sometimes weight on the body can feel really nice. So having like a folded blanket resting on top of my torso feels a little more grounding, a little more almost like cozy or safe than having nothing on top of me. So that's another option too. Spend as long as you like here. And I'll either practice again with you on video very soon, or I'll practice with you in real life